שמחת עולם. אז תתחזק ותתרפא, והייתה לה שמחת עולם. אדוני זיו העולם, נפשי חולת, נפשי חולת אהבתך. אנא אלנה לפנה לה, והראות לנו המזיבה. אז תתחזק ותתרפא, והייתה לה שמחת עולם. אז תתחזק ותתרפא, והייתה לה שמחת עולם. דידידי דידידי דידידם, דידידי דידידי דידידם, דידידי דידידה דידידם, איי 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 איי, דידידי דידידי דידידם, דידידי דידידי דידידם, דידידי דידידה דידידם.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I know you're just settling in. There we go. Hello. It's so good to be here with all of you and with you, Eitan. Thank you for that beautiful performance. Eitan is a musician, educator, and composer based in Denver, Colorado. And he's the music director at Hebrew Educational Alliance, where he uses the unifying power of group song to build community and to galvanize crowds into action, which is very much what we hope to achieve here at Dayenu. So glad you could join us to perform Anna Elna, or I ask or I beseech God, please, a real grounding song of advocacy and moral righteousness. So thank you, Eitan. We will welcome you back at the end of the program, but for now, I'm gonna kick things off. So welcome, and thank you for joining Banking on Climate Crisis, a Dayenu teach-in and Passover Action Reportback with special guests from the Rainforest Action Network. We're hoping that we can use this evening to recapture some of the magic of the amazing Passover actions. So thank you, Eitan, you're doing just that. And we'll hope to do that later this evening as well with all of your participation. I want to add that the song that Eitan shared with us was also the song that he played at the Denver, Colorado Action outside of a Wells Fargo branch. So if you closed your eyes, you could almost feel the wind in your hair like you were outside Wells Fargo in Denver. We're going to drop in the chat the best place to learn more about Eitan's music and original compositions, so look out for that. But let's start with introductions. My name is Dahlia, and I'm Dayenu's Washington director, joining you tonight from the traditional land of the Piscataway Nation in Washington, D.C. Now I want to hear from all of you. So if you haven't already, please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat with your name, your pronouns. I use she, hers, your location, and if you're joining us with a group. And we've put that prompt in the chat as well. I think we might have to work on our settings because you might be trying to message us right now and we're not able to show them. So hang tight. We will work on that. Meanwhile, oh, here we go. Okay, don't be shy. I think the answer is don't be shy. So thank you, Matt, for leaning in. Great, I see Kate's right down the road in Maryland. Great, I'm seeing both coasts. Amazing. Thank you all. Keep it coming. Colorado, Cleveland, California, North and South, Florida, Evanston. Love to see from across the nation you joining in tonight, and it's really, really great to be in community together. And since I can't see your faces, I feel your presence. So thank you for joining us. And I want to make sure that you can get the most out of tonight's program. So I'm going to share a few brief administrative notes. The first is that at the bottom of the screen, there's a button that says live transcript. So if you're looking for closed captioning, you want to click on live transcript and select show subtitles. We're going to be shutting off the chat in just a minute, so keep those introductions coming. And in fact, if you're sitting on it, now's a great time to hit enter, because we want to make sure that you can focus entirely on the program. So if you need technical support during the webinar, you're welcome to send a message or a chat to my colleague Nati Pasnow, or you can raise your hand and one of our staff members will contact you directly and make sure you get the help that you need. And lastly, you can probably see from the live on the top left of my screen, hopefully on yours as well, that we are recording tonight's program and streaming it on Facebook. So if you have friends and family who might be interested in tuning in, we will drop the link in just a second in the chat. Feel free to share that. Feel free to invite and share the link with your friends on Facebook. Great. So we know that people are coming to tonight's teach-in, some of whom it's their first Dayenu event, some of whom have been with us for many months, and some of whom were invited by our friends at the Exodus Alliance and the Jewish Youth Climate Movement. So I want to say welcome to all the newbies out there. We are so glad you're here. At Dayenu, we are building a multi-generational Jewish movement that confronts the climate crisis with spiritual audacity and bold political action, and you make that movement. So thank you. And tonight we are picking up from where we left, in February, when we launched All Our Might, a campaign to end the era of fossil fuels and build a clean energy future. And we will achieve that by using 3 key strategies. The first is to keep fossil fuels, oil, gas, and coal in the ground and unburned. And we'll do that by pressuring investors to move their dough, which you'll hear about later on this call, from fossil fuels to clean energy. Second, we'll work in partnership with Jewish communal institutions to ve'acharta b'chaim, to choose life and move their investments from polluting fossil fuels to climate solutions. And thirdly, we'll stand shoulder to shoulder with communities on the front lines of drilling, mining, and transportation, stopping the projects that endanger their health and future. Since we launched the campaign, this work has only become more urgent, with the release of a report from the leading scientific body at the United Nations, known as the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, telling us that we have just 3 years to stop burning fossil fuels. And I'm proud to say that the Jewish community really responded to this call to action, embracing this first strategy by planning and attending 21 soulful, joyous, and impactful actions this Passover season. Tonight, you'll hear from 2 talented action organizers, Gabby Plotkin in Chicago, Illinois, and Marlene Drescher in Eugene, Oregon. And after that, you'll get a sneak peek of a video that will tell the story of our collective impact. We literally just got that edit 5 minutes ago, so you are the first ones to see it. Plus, as I shared, we'll invite Eitan back to share another song. But first, we want to make sure we understand what we're up against as we continue to call on investors to stop funding fossil fuels. All Our Might is a new Jewish campaign in a long history of pressuring financial institutions inside their boardrooms and outside their branches and offices to end extraction and act on climate. Rainforest Action Network, or RAN, has been a leader in this work, and we are lucky to be joined by Jason Opeña-Disterhoft and Grant Marr from RAN. Jason and Grant will teach us about the many years campaigning on financial institutions and their latest findings on how banks are funding the climate crisis. They'll also take some of your questions, so get ready. Our goal is for everyone to walk away from this call with a better understanding and analysis of where we are at this point in the movement to end the era of fossil fuels and the problem and what we can do to address it. Our hope is that you will feel empowered to pass on something you learned tonight to a friend and invite them into this work. We started the night by grounding ourselves in Jewish song, and before we dive into the teach-in, we turn to Jewish wisdom for inspiration. I had the privilege of seeing Rabbi Nora Feinstein speak at the DC Passover Action, and let me say, she brought it. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Rabbi Nora Feinstein of Sixth and I Historic Synagogue in Washington, D.C., who will share a kavanah or intention to kick us off.
Thank you, Dalia. Erev Tov and good evening. I'm going to imagine that you're saying it back to me. Erev Tov, good evening. Thank you to Dalia, to Vicky, to the team at Dayenu, and thank you to each and every one of you for being here tonight. Each of us has a different reason that we showed up to this teach-in, committing to be forces for good as we confront the climate crisis with all our might. Indeed, all our might and all of us, our voices, our bodies, and our lives are needed in this movement. We are all here because we are dedicated to healing and protecting our precious planet. Tonight, we will learn together. We will lift our voices in song. We will share back from the 21 actions which took place during Passover when over 1,000 of us urged powerful banks and asset managers to divest from fossil fuels, ensuring a more just and sustainable future for all the world's inhabitants. During the holiday of Passover, we retell the Exodus narrative, recounting the movement of the ancient Israelites from constriction to expansiveness, from degradation to liberation. In the book of Shemot, in Exodus, we read that the Israelites were birthed into freedom with a cry. B'nai Yisrael, the children of Israel, they saw Pharaoh's army marching after them, and they were very afraid. The Hebrew there is Vayiru me'od. They were very afraid. The Israelites cried out to God. They petitioned their leader, Moses, asking to go back to the reality that they had left behind, preferring the familiar status quo to the unknown future opening up before them. Scared and overwhelmed by the prospect of radically changing their lives and leaving the world they knew, Vayiru me'od, the children of Israel were very, very much afraid. And that word, me'od, very much or mightily, that's the same Hebrew word that grounds Dayenu's All Our Might campaign. Like the Israelites in the Exodus narrative, we see the world as we know it, changing before our very eyes, and we are very much afraid. We are mightily troubled by what is happening to this planet. We are worried and we are concerned. But we are not only here to sound the alarm or to cry out in panic or frustration. No, we are also here to affirm our abiding hope. Because as Jews, we see ourselves as people engaged in an intergenerational story stretching through time and space. And the Jewish tradition insists that the world can and must be habitable for generations to come. Every year, the holiday of Passover reminds us of our duty to translate fear into redemptive vision, to see ourselves as inheritors of a powerful charge and rallying cry. We retell the Exodus story annually to remind us that when we witness contemporary plagues, we must address them. We must confront the unjust systems that enable today's pharaohs, even if doing so feels scary and overwhelming. Together, as a multi-faith movement for climate justice, we have the ability to transform our fear about the future into reparative action in the present. My friends, the time is now to change the world because there is no going back. And there might just be a more beautiful and sustainable future if we insist on getting there as one human family, singing, grieving, healing, taking action, and moving forward together.
Amen. Thank you, Rabbi Feinstein. Now, everyone take a deep breath because we are diving right in. With that grounding and focus, we are going to look at the nitty-gritty of fossil fuel finance. And I am happy to introduce Jason and Grant from Rainforest Action Network. Jason is a senior climate and energy campaigner at Rainforest Action Network, where he leads engagement with US banks on their fossil fuel financing. And prior to RAN, he worked at Amnesty International on a range of human rights issues. Grant Marr is a researcher at RAN. In addition to other campaign research for the climate and energy team, he leads the data processes to find the amount of total fossil fuel financing that each of the world's banks is responsible for in the annual Banking on Climate Chaos report. All this to say, you should definitely direct your hard questions to him. One of RAND's critical contributions to the movement is to run the numbers and check the receipts. Just how much are banks in the US and around the world funding fossil fuel companies and their projects? And for the past 13 years, yes, this is their bar or bat mitzvah year, RAND has published the report Banking on Climate Chaos. And they're here tonight to brief us on this report and answer your questions. As a reminder, we can see your comments in the chat, but there's a lot coming through. So if you have a question, we ask you to submit via the Q&A button. The Q&A button is right on the bottom. I'm pointing right above my Q&A button. That is the best place to send your questions. If you put your question in the chat, we can't guarantee that we will spot them because we thankfully have a very enthusiastic crowd. So keep those questions in mind. We will do our best to get to as many as possible. And again, if you have any technical issues or questions, you can raise your hand and we'll reach out to you. So with that, Jason and Grant, take it away.
Thanks so much, Dahlia. Thanks to you and Vicky and the whole team for inviting us into this beautiful community that you're building. Thank you, Rabbi Feinstein, for that very moving and inspiring grounding. You're a hard act to follow, but we'll do our best. And I just want to start out by saying the work that you all have done already has been amazing to see and incredibly impressive. So thank you for that and keep it up. So I'm going to just set a bit of context and then hand things over to Grant to sort of dive into the most recent findings from our Banking on Climate Chaos report. So just to take a step back, and I know that Dayenu has a theory of change that you work with, but just to articulate how we think about these issues at Rainforest Action Network. If you care about the climate crisis, why do you care about what banks are up to? So every fossil fuel development needs at least three things. Needs permits, needs insurance, needs money. And banks are the public face of that money. They are major drivers of climate change through their financing. They are public facing, ubiquitous, household name companies. And crucially, they are more movable than fossil fuel companies. They care more about pressure, the kind of pressure that we can bring. I should say a lot of this applies to asset managers as well. In this particular teach-in, we'll be focusing on banks. Next slide. So this movement at this point has a couple of decades of history. From the early 2000s, kicking things off with a campaign on Citi over their fossil and deforestation project financing. The first half of the last decade saw a lot of campaigning on coal with Bank of America, which at the time was the biggest coal bank in the world, a real focus. And then after the Paris Climate Agreement in the second half of the last decade and up to the present, the movement has really upped its ambition to try to meet the moment. So we saw a few years of focus on extreme fossil fuels, so tar sands oil, Arctic oil and gas. And then in recent years, the movement has broadened its scope to work on all fossil fuels, with a particular focus on the expansion of fossil fuels and ending expansion. We really see as the immediate, urgent next step in bending the curve towards zero. And at this point, it is genuinely a full spectrum movement. Everything from research to direct engagement with banks, shareholder and regulatory work, as we're seeing this shareholder season, partnerships with communities fighting fossil fuels, who want to, also pressure the banks that are backing the projects and the companies that they're fighting against, media work, online action, in-person action, all of which adds up to a drumbeat of pressure that makes it hard for the banks to ignore our issues. And when we talk to bank sustainability teams and other executives and ask them what breaks through, that is always what they tell us. It is that consistency of action that spotlights these issues, keeps a spotlight on them, keeps them uppermost in the minds of decision makers within the banks. So thank you again for your contribution to that. And with that, I'll hand things over to Grant to dive into our most recent findings.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, and thank you everyone for having us. It's such a pleasure and a privilege to be able to speak to you all, and also just to be able to learn from all the amazing actions that we've been planning. Yeah, so I'm Grant. I'm a researcher here at RAN, and I go really deep into the data in our reports, especially in this report, the Banking on Climate Chaos report. And so I'm going to dive a little bit into the data, which helps inform the action, of course, and helps inform the strategy. So just a little bit about this report. This is the 13th annual. This really is the most comprehensive analysis of private bank financing for fossil fuels. We now cover the 60 biggest global banks. And it's not just a project of RAN, this is actually a deep collaboration between 7 different authoring organizations. They're listed pretty small at the bottom of your screen, but for any more detail about this report or the numbers, you can always go to bankingonclimatechaos.org for the full version and for lots of tools to click on. And this year we had over 500 organizations endorsing the report, which really speaks to how much this has been recognized as a source for the movement. So I'm going to dive into some graphs. If you're watching this on a phone, this might be a little small for you, but I'll describe things verbally. So hopefully this all makes sense. I'm going to go through it a little quickly, but hopefully, so we have some time for Q&A. But just wanted to pull out some of the main findings of this year's report. So one of the main findings since the Paris Agreement, in the last 6 years, these 60 banks have financed $4.6 trillion into fossil fuels. And so that's obviously a huge amount. If we look at the trend, which is this graph over on the left, we can see that the overall trend is going still slightly upward since the Paris Agreement. The last 2 years have both been higher than in 2016 and 2017, but they have remained flat. This year was pretty flat compared to last year. So we're not seeing the dip that we would need to feel like we're going in line with a climate stable world. This is a graph of what we're calling the dirty dozen. So I know Dayenu has a different spin on the top banks, but in our report, the dirty dozen is the top 12 banks globally who have done the most fossil fuel financing since the Paris Agreement. And you'll see in this graph that numbers 1 through 4 are all US banks. JP Morgan Chase or Chase Bank is at the top by a lot, by 34%, if you add up all the financing since 2016. So the top 6 US banks are all pretty high. The other 2 are not far from those 4. Morgan Stanley is at number 12, and then just below the dozen is Goldman Sachs at number 14. If you look at the big 6 US banks and add them all up, that's $1.4 trillion in financing since Paris. And that's about 31% of total financing, even though it's only 6 out of 60 banks. So US banks have a very outsized share of this problem. This graph looks pretty similar, but it's actually telling a different story. So this graph is actually just showing which banks went in the wrong direction last year. So which banks had the biggest increases in their overall fossil fuel financing from 2020 to 2021. And you'll see some US banks near the top of this list too, and Canadian banks. Wells Fargo is actually the worst if you look at it this way. Their financing jumped 20 billion higher last year compared to 2020. So even though overall financing stayed pretty flat last year, there are some standout banks that are really headed in the wrong direction. Chase is also in the top 5. So I'm going to dive in now for the next couple of slides of what are we really talking about here? What is fossil fuel financing? Just so we can all kind of have a shared understanding of what this really means. And so this gets a little bit in the weeds of how the banks are really carrying this out. So this very simple graph shows fossil fuel financing by asset class. And what this means is how much of it is lending. So the majority of bank fossil fuel financing over the last 6 years is actually not in loans, which is what we tend to think about. People tend to think about fossil fuel lending, but we also need to keep an eye on fossil fuel underwriting. So banks also help fossil fuel companies in terms of underwriting bonds and underwriting equity issuances or stock. This is also financing for fossil fuels. So it's about half and half. 49% is going to lending to companies, but the other half is underwriting bonds and equity issuances. So this is important because it really points to a massive loophole for any bank that just has policies that apply to loans. So if a bank is only saying that they're going to address lending, it's only talking about half of the problem here. So that's something to keep in mind. This is also pointing to a couple things to keep in mind. Apologies, the text is probably pretty small on everyone's computers, but I'm going to point out what this graph is really telling us. So basically this big square that you see on the left that's made up of different colors, this big square represents all of the fossil fuel financing since the Paris Agreement. That's $4.6 trillion we're talking about, but it slices it up and shows how much is going to oil and gas. That's this leftmost big section. How much is going to utilities? That's that next big section. And you'll see that coal is actually only this third slice. Coal is only 4%. Coal and mining companies only represent about 4% of the financing. So significant, of course, but we want to keep our eyes on what's important. And so circling over here, oil and gas and utilities companies are receiving a huge amount of bank financing for fossil fuels. And another way you slice this data in the same graph actually is with different colors. So the sort of dark blue color in the middle, that represents project financing. And so that means financing that's going to companies for specific projects. So tagged for specific gas terminals or specific pipelines. And you'll see that it's a very small percentage. So 91% of financing that we're talking about is actually just non-project related. It's usually general corporate financing. So loans or bonds to companies that can be used pretty much however the company wants. Usually it's in the form of credit facilities, which is a lot like a credit card. It's lending these companies money or underwriting bonds. They can use it how they want. So this all together tells a story that we need to keep our eyes on how this matches up with banks' policies. If a bank has a policy that only restricts coal mining, that's a small percentage of this problem. If they have a policy that's only addressing project financing and not general corporate financing, then we're not actually talking about a solution. I hope that all made sense. Something to keep in mind on this is that, most of us remember the, many years of Keystone XL protests against the Keystone XL pipeline. That was financed through general corporate financing. That was not a project-specific loan that got that project built, or not built. It was being planned at that time and being orchestrated. So I hope that all makes sense. Now I'm going to dive in for a second about a concept that's important, which is this concept of fossil fuel expansion. So when we're talking about banks needing to, the need for banks to solidify policies on fossil fuel expansion, we're talking about no more financing is within a reasonable climate pathway for new projects to be built. So if we're going to follow a pathway to a stable climate, no new pipelines, no new oil drilling can be started at this point. We need to be ratcheting down what's already in place. Unfortunately, a lot of the world's biggest fossil fuel companies are still explicitly planning fossil fuel expansion. So it's new projects. And so this list of companies that you see on your slide, on your screen, are the worst actors in terms of that. These are the fossil fuel companies that have the biggest expansion plans for upstream oil and gas. And this is just 20 companies, but these 20 companies account for more than half of all the planned expansion and exploration that has been written down on paper. These companies are very explicit. Yes, we are planning on building new fossil fuel projects. And this is just not in line with a climate stable world. The International Energy Agency backs this up. And so if we look at, I'm going to run through this a little bit quickly, but this is a complicated graph that you can see more of on our website that shows the worst banks in terms of financing those companies. And you'll see a lot of US banks on here. I will just note quickly, Wells Fargo is not explicitly in this graph, but Wells Fargo is pretty bad in fossil fuel expansion as well. They just have a little bit different focus. They're very fracking heavy. But you can hover over this on our website and see specific numbers for how much each of the companies is being financed by each of the banks. So there's a lot of data to look through. Quickly on this, there's also in our report a sort of timeline that shows how much hypocrisy has been going on. In 2021 especially, a lot of these banks have been signing up for net zero pledges, meaning they're pledging to pull their financing in line with a net zero world. But at the same time, or even right after that, the banks on your screen were signing deals to those same fossil fuel companies that are currently expanding fossil fuels. So this actually sort of presents a big opportunity for our movement to call out this hypocrisy. It's a new angle for campaigning and holding these banks to account. Hope that all made sense. I'm going to pass it back to Jason to sort of zoom out for a bit.
Thanks, Grant. And I'm going to close quickly with just a snapshot of where the banks stand in terms of the policies that they have regarding fossil fuels that are currently on the books for them. So first thing to say is the big six Wall Street banks really move as a pack. They mirror one another. They're constantly watching what the others do. A typical move is for them, first one to move a little bit, the others to copy and paste exactly what the first mover does. It's helpful to think of bank policies around fossil fuels in two buckets. One of them is exclusion policies, so hard restrictions on what they will and won't finance. Every Wall Street bank has a prohibition on financing coal projects. Every Wall Street bank has a prohibition on financing Arctic oil and gas projects. Every Wall Street bank has a commitment to phase out coal mining financing. But as you'll recall from Grant's slide earlier, this represents just a very small slice of overall fossil financing. More recently, we've seen banks, go back to the previous, thanks. More recently, we've seen banks commit to what's called net zero financed emissions by 2050, meaning reduce emissions from projects and companies that they're financing and either capture or offset the rest. The net has a lot of issues in it. We'll leave that aside for right now. We've also, just in the last several months, seen each of these banks put out targets for their oil and gas and their power portfolios for 2030. So what are they going to do for the rest of this decade? On oil and gas, which is where we've seen the biggest spread among the banks, JP Morgan Chase has an intensity only target, and it's by far the worst. Goldman's is also quite bad. Citi and Wells Fargo have absolute emissions targets, and they're the best of a bad bunch. Next slide. So a few huge problems with where things stand. For one, the targets just aren't strong enough. We know from the IPCC, we have to cut global emissions in half by the end of this decade. These targets won't do the job. Another issue is 2030 is just too far away and there's no requirement for immediate action. banks think that they've won a multi-year grace period for business as usual. And as Grant showed in the 2021 slide, business as usual is wrecking our climate. So our movement's job is to push banks to stop financing expansion of fossil fuels now, today. So that's the task ahead of all of us. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason and Grant, for that really, really thorough overview in a very short period of time. And I can tell you that there were some comments coming in just thanking you for sharing this helpful information. And also some silence, a recognition that people are listening intently. So for those who were listening intently, I want to remind you to drop your questions in the Q&A box. And we have about 8 minutes for questions. So I will do my best to try and group those together. But I did want to start by just asking for you to break down a little of the jargon. And I know we don't want to get too far in the weeds, but we had multiple people ask about intensity only versus absolute emissions. So why is one better than the other? And for those out there, we're going to try and keep it in layman's terms. So if you have follow-up questions, those are great, but this is probably going to be your one shot. And we encourage you to continue to dig deeper, but I have faith in Jason and Grant, so go for it.
Yeah. So intensity only targets. And a helpful analogy here, I think, is tobacco. So think of light cigarettes. All right. A commitment to reduce the intensity of the fossil fuels that you're financing is like a commitment to reduce the tar and nicotine of the cigarettes that you're financing. So better than nothing, but we need to stop smoking. So that's the difference. An absolute emissions target it's like a target to cut the number of cigarettes that you're producing by a certain percentage. An intensity only target does no such thing. It doesn't say anything about the number of cigarettes. All it says is 15% less tar and nicotine. It's just not good enough. In fact, it's totally compatible with ramping way up the number of cigarettes that you're producing. And that is the play that we're seeing from the fossil fuel industry. A big shift to gas, but no plans on their part to cut production.
Thank you, Jason. So lots of great questions coming in and a lot of really positive feedback. So thank you for that. And I know there's some questions about Dayenu strategy and questions about the broader movement. I'm going to hold on that while we have our experts here. I appreciate this question from Irene, which was, we asked you to think about what was the tidbit of information you would share with others. And Irene flagged that a lot of this funding is general operations, as Grant showed us, and it's not project-based. So how do we make sure that people really know that, so that when a bank says, oh, we're not funding a project, or we're not funding Keystone XL or something along those lines, we can call them out for that, and people know the truth.
Yeah, and sometimes it still is project-based, and it's very easy to show like, oh, there's an LNG, a liquefied natural gas plant being planned, and if you are tied to that project-specific financing, that's pretty damning. But in terms of most of the financing here, yeah, you're right. I think the task at hand is to show, well, your bank has a long-standing relationship with this specific fossil fuel company. And if you go to bankingonclimatechaos.org, you can actually filter by bank or filter by company. You can see the specific relationships since 2016. So the data is there. And banks like to sort of hide behind, well, the excuse that we're helping our clients transition. But well, yeah, we can point out the relationships and show that even if it's general corporate financing, you're not helping them transition fast enough for a climate stable world. Jason, did you have any more other thoughts on that?
I think you hit the key points.
Great. So we're getting a few questions about whether the same focus should be on other industries. Insurance was brought up as an example, or what is the relationship between these banks and an asset manager or an insurance company? So if you could just provide a little guidance. I know we had an action in Hartford, and there's some folks there that is the insurance capital of America. We had actions outside BlackRock. So what's the relationship between a BlackRock and a Citibank, for example? And what's a relationship between a Travelers Insurance and a Chase?
Yeah, one of the most exciting things that we've seen in the movement just in the last few years is that the climate movement is taking on not just banks, but the whole ecosystem of financial institutions that are driving climate change. And that includes insurance companies, that includes asset managers. Projects and companies are not bankable unless they get insurance first. That is absolutely true. So the Insure Our Future coalition, of which RAN is one part, but there are many partners working on that, does directly pressure insurance companies to stop covering fossil fuels, and they've had a lot of success right off the bat around coal in particular, which has been great to see. And as always, the real action is around oil and gas, so the work continues there. Likewise, big asset managers, BlackRock, Vanguard, et cetera, they are also massive providers of capital, and pressuring them continues to be just a hugely important piece of the puzzle. The numbers around asset managers, just in terms of capital flows that they're responsible for, are absolutely eye-popping. And I think all of these elements of all of these elements of the ecosystem are really, really important to push on.
Thanks, Jason. All this to say is that we are part of, and we are joining a big, expansive, smart, strategic movement with lots of different organizations and arms targeting lots of these players. And we contribute our part, and they do theirs. So really good questions. And part of working with an organization like Dayenu, for example, is they help focus on an institution and consistently let them know that you are watching. I also wanted to just pick up on the last point that you made, Jason, which was just the amount of money and frankly, social license, right? The idea that you can get insurance or can't get insurance that these institutions have. So I saw at least one or two questions around moving your money individually. And I think that is certainly an important part of the equation, but we want to recognize that these are greater magnitudes of money by pressuring some of these institutions. And certainly some of our colleagues are actually using the fact that people bank with these institutions as leverage. I see a question here about leverage points, and there's lots of different ways to go about it. But if you don't threaten to move your money, then your engagement isn't going to go anywhere. So it's a little of a push-pull, and really what we want these institutions to know we mean business. I will end with one final question, which wasn't in the chat, but speaks to the history of RAN and what you bring to the movement. First of all, those were great pictures in the slide deck. My favorite was the banner drop. There was someone hanging on a light pole, hanging a banner. RAN is great for banner drops. But I wanted to ask you a little more about your work with frontline communities, because you are really good at weaving the data with the engagement with those who are most impacted. So would love to hear an example or a story of how you do that work with people on the ground, and how that inspires and makes your work that much more effective.
I can kick things off. Yeah, so fossil financing matters most because it directly impacts communities on the ground that are facing the direct impacts of these fossil fuel projects, as well as communities that are facing the effects of climate change around the world. So RAN, for all of its history, has really has prioritized forming deep partnerships with members of communities that are opposing particular fossil fuel projects. So recently, for example, we've worked with Indigenous advocates and allies who were opposing the Line 3 tar sands pipeline, Enbridge's Line 3 tar sands pipeline through Minnesota. The Trans Mountain tar sands pipeline through British Columbia is another example. And solidarity can take lots of forms. Sometimes it is depending on what communities are calling for. RAND tries to provide that in as full spectrum a way as we can. Sometimes it is going and standing with our bodies side by side, in solidarity at key moments. Sometimes it is, helping to shine a light, using the platforms that we have to shine a light on the fights that these communities are waging. Sometimes it's money. It's can go a long way for supporting these fights. Sometimes it's sharing the mic, bringing in frontline voices directly into the boardroom and having them speak directly to bank executives and explain the impacts of the projects that they're financing. One thing about banks is they are very insulated from the real world effects of the financing that they're responsible for. So part of what we try to do is bring those frontline impacts to the bank and confront them with those impacts as a key step in holding them accountable.
Great. Thank you, Jason and Grant. There are lots of more questions coming in, including how to influence shareholders. Stay tuned. That's how we're going to end this call. So don't worry, we will get you. But really informative presentation and thank you for all the work that you do on banking on climate chaos. We've shared the link in the chat and we will share it again. So with that, we are going to shift gears. And I will say that we have figured out how to make sure that everyone in the chat can see what's in the chat. So I want to invite you to thank and celebrate Jason and Grant, put a plus sign, put a star, put an exclamation point, something that just reflects your enthusiasm and your appreciation for their participation. So I invite you to do that over the next few minutes while we change gears. I really appreciated ending that note about identifying what our role is and making sure we're using that role in concert with those who are most impacted and the real world effects. And what we were able to do over Passover is to share how we as the Jewish community are experiencing the climate crisis and how we are bringing our tradition, our songfulness, our community to confront the climate crisis. So after that informative presentation, we are going to move into hearing about our incredible organizing done by Dayenu leaders and partners this Passover. So I am delighted to introduce two inspiring Jewish leaders who've recently organized Passover actions with local teams. First, we'll hear from Gabby Plotkin in Illinois, and then Gabby's going to pass the mic to Marlene Drescher in Eugene, Oregon. Gabby, you're up.
Growing up Jewish in Colorado, I experienced the beauty of the outdoors, Jewish summer camp, hiking, being in the mountains where I felt most spiritually connected. I practiced Jewish rituals with an environmental tinge. At the same time, I saw the change in climate, wildfires, bark beetles destroying forests, drought. As I got older, I learned about the science behind climate change and began to understand how this catastrophic situation was a result of policy choices and human actions. In college, I researched and wrote a thesis on the history of the American Jewish environmental movement from the 1960s to the early 1980s. I had the opportunity to talk to folks involved, rabbis, spiritual leaders, activists. These conversations inspired me. The climate crisis is so big, it can be hard to visualize how one person can make a difference. After taking the Dayenu organizing training in the winter, And sitting with those ideas, I felt empowered to take action and lead the Chicagoland Passover Action with Rich Amond and Sharon Smaller. We stood outside of Chase Bank in Evanston, a suburb of Chicago. We chose an ideal location in a square popular for political action that was wide open with a lot of exposure near the downtown area. Unfortunately, that meant it was a wind tunnel because we gathered together on a freezing day, but we persevered. The action was meaningful for me, knowing others have taken action at this very Chase Bank, and people across the country were taking action so that our message would be heard. I know that I'm a part of something bigger. Our action was multi-generational, which was particularly moving for me. Everyone was passionate because of or in spite of their age. They felt called to make a change when it wasn't going to directly affect them. Making changes at the level of financial institutions helps us get to the root of the climate crisis. Climate change is systemic, current, and ongoing. However, we have a host of Jewish teachings about the environment, values of social justice, and passionate people that can come together and tell banks to move their dough. We need to continue to tap into that energy. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Marlene Drescher. I'm on Kalapuya land here in Eugene, Oregon. And I've been asked to tell you a little bit about myself as your basic boomer, and also to tell you a little bit about our Passover Earth Day action. I've been a social activist for a very long time, over 5 decades, but only in the last 7 to 10 years have I been an environmental activist working on the climate crisis. I joined 350 Eugene about the same time I joined the Tikkun Olam Committee at Temple Beth Israel, my synagogue. One of my first actions was as a kayaktivist at Anacortes to stop a gas refinery expansion in violation of ancient Indian territorial and fishing rights. The action was led by Native American elders with heartfelt, peaceful, and compelling speeches, dances, singing, and even a traditional handcrafted painted dugout canoe that arrived by sea to a moving welcome ritual. It was a stirring, memorable, and inspiring experience. Seeing how beautiful and compelling the Native American leadership was, I yearned for a similar experience of authenticity and gravitas within my Jewish community, my own tribe. Through the Tikkun Olam Committee, we sponsored or co-sponsored a number of actions, including opposition to the Jordan Cove liquefied natural gas plant and pipeline, which would have caused great damage to the Oregon coast, denigrated areas promised to Native Americans, and compromised hundreds of pristine rivers, streams, etc. in Oregon, while dredging a wildlife refuge in the bay at Jordan Cove. Together with our many non-Jewish allies, Temple Beth Israel participated in a postcard campaign and a direct action campaign that helped terminate the Jordan Cove proposed disaster. It took a number of years and demanded a huge amount of strategic persistence, but activists felt empowered with this most important success. So when Dayenu suggested Passover Move Your Dough fossil fuel defunding action, 4 of us decided to organize it and to start a Dayenu circle in Eugene. We all had a desire to authentically represent Jewish values through the Passover story and align those values with the action to stop funding fossil fuel industries. We decided to reach out and involve young people in serious, productive roles for the action. We had 2 teen speakers, another teen reading the modern fossil fuel plagues, and a little girl holding up different paintings made by children, illustrating each modern plague. When she displayed an entirely black painted picture representing the plague of darkness, people later told me they were moved to tears. Her youth, fragility, despair, and hope were evident. We invited a progressive cantor who explained the meaning of Dayenu in the context of the demonstration, and we sang Dayenu together energetically. With a beautiful voice, our cantor sang call and response songs with lyrics like, I will walk with you, I will sing with you, don't be afraid, it's not too late. She really aligned solidarity and spirituality. We also decided to make the event fun, so I cut long bamboo leafy shoots from my backyard to have people swish the bamboo representing the sea of reeds. We raised the bamboo and opened the sea only after our Miriam took the first step into the sea while advancing to the Chase stores with a letter to Chase CEO Jamie Dimon. People really had fun with the bamboo, and upon delivery, our letter carrier received a great whooping ovation from the crowd. We feel proud that we created a moving, rich, dynamic, participatory Jewish event in the public sphere. We had a great turnout that filled the sidewalk in front of the bank, and probably 50% of them were non-Jewish allies. People were engaged and moved to action, as is required for social change. Passover represents liberation, and we had an opportunity to Jewishly show that we could apply the same liberation strategies that our ancestors used in escaping bondage to defund the fossil fuel industry. That's my story.
Thank you both, Gabby and Marlene. Between the wind tunnels in Evanston and the backyard bamboo in Eugene, Oregon, I feel like I was there. So thank you for sharing those stories and being brave to really step up and lead these actions. We know that in and of itself is crossing into uncharted territory. So again, I want to invite people. I know I saw that Vicki dropped this into the chat, but show some love and appreciation for our amazing action leaders. Again, plus signs, exclamation points, emojis, it's all great. We can see it, and in this virtual world, it's so nice, again, to feel your presence through the screen. So thank you to our action leaders. And tonight you met two of them, but they stand together with dozens of people across the country who planned these 20 plus actions. And it makes for a compelling story, so much so that we captured it on video. And we are in the process of working with a company called Tikkun Olam Productions to create a version to share with the public. And as I shared when I started this call, we just got the most recent, not yet final edit. As a thank you for all your work, as a thank you for joining us, we wanted to give you a sneak peek. So hang tight. We're going to show you a short snippet of the video, and then I'll come back and close out our program.
This Passover, Jews across the country took to the streets to call on the country's largest financial institutions to take urgent climate action.
They use our resources to mine, frack, burn oil, gas, and coal. Last year, these banks pumped $742 billion into fossil fuels.
We were called to act because we are living through real-life plagues, record fires that burn up forests and homes, 100-year storms and floods that destroy livelihoods, and droughts that parch habitats and cities.
But we are here today because the climate crisis is not an inevitability. There are powerful forces that bear responsibility.
Passover is not a passive holiday. We retell our story in order to remind ourselves that when we witness contemporary plagues, we must address them.
We're fighting for an end to climate injustice.
The climate crisis is threatening our very ability to live l'dor l'dor, from generation to generation. But like Miriam, Moses, and Aaron in the Passover story, we have the courage and moral clarity to choose a different path. We must begin our journey toward a just and livable future. This year on Passover, we say Dayenu, enough. Enough destruction. Enough bankrolling petro-dictators and oil, gas, and coal CEOs who profit while the world burns.
Each and every generation, a person is obligated to see themselves as if they exited Mitzrayim.
Banks and financial institutions like BlackRock have been enabling these fossil fuel pharaohs by continuing to fund the extraction, transportation, and burning of oil, gas, and coal.
We are here today to call on Chase Bank to move their dough and stop funding fossil fuels.
That BlackRock, move your dough.
This Passover, we celebrated in the streets, singing and dancing like our ancestors when they crossed the Sea of Reeds.
Like the Israelites leaving Egypt, join us in our journey toward freedom. The time is now.
Everybody got matzah? If you haven't eaten it yet, hold it up. Woo! Today, we hold up matzah as a symbol of the urgency of Chase to make meaningful action to avert the worst of climate destruction.
Like the ancient Israelites who had the courage to set a new course in uncertain times, we have no time to waste. Join us.
Great. Thank you. It's exciting to see you all on film, and I can say that looking at the participant list, many of you who are in this video are also on this call. So we will have a final version of this inspiring and soulful video capturing these actions on Monday. And I'm excited that we can share it with the world, both to celebrate our work and our movement, but also to keep the pressure on our targets. And as Grant alluded, we at Dayenu put our own spin on it. We call them the Shmutzi Sheva, or the Dirty Seven. And why these actions were so timely is because now is a key moment in the calendar. It's the time of year where bank shareholders come together and they vote on resolutions. They vote on the policy that these institutions need to follow. And the same thing is true for other types of companies as well, insurance companies and asset managers. And in two of our Shmutzi Sheva members, they have not had their meeting yet. Those shareholders have not voted. And in fact, those meetings are coming up in the next 2 weeks. And it's the two Shmutzi Sheva members that you see in the video. Chase's meeting, shareholder meeting, is next week. And BlackRock, the asset manager, their shareholder meeting is the following. So what we want to do is we want to share this video far and wide so that shareholders and employees can hear our demands and hopefully be inspired to act. Next week, we're going to send you an email with the final video and a sample message to post on social media, tagging Chase and BlackRock and other members of the Shmutzi Sheva. Our goal is to get their attention, to get their shareholders' attention in advance of these meetings. The good news is that our pressure is already working. I'm happy to share that one of the letters that were delivered, you saw those letter deliveries in the video, but a letter from Ann Arbor, Michigan, hello to my Michiganders, we know has reached Chase CEO Jamie Dimon's office because a member of his staff called us. And they shared a prepared statement, which was not the most inspiring, but demonstrates to us that our message is getting through and we need to make sure that they continue to feel the heat. The bad news is we are still in a David and Goliath struggle. I am very disappointed to share that earlier this week, BlackRock released a statement saying that they wouldn't support key climate resolutions at the banks, insurers, and companies that they hold shares in. And this is shameful backsliding from a financial institution that claims to be a climate leader. So we know what we need to do. We need to share our video. We need to show our might, and we need to tell them that we are watching and we are keeping the pressure on, and we expect them to support these resolutions. We expect them to ultimately stop fossil fuel expansion, to stop investing, to move their dough, and stop funding fossil fuels. So with that, I want to make sure that you are with me and you are committed to taking action. So if you are planning to share that video and tag the Shmutzi Sheva, I want you to type in the chat, I'm in. I'm in the chat if you're committed to sharing the video. And if you're not on social media, you can do it by email. If you're a customer at these institutions, you can call and find out where to send them the video. But we want to make our presence known. I'm loving all these I'm ins. So just think of the impact we can have. It's not just the 21 actions that we had, but it's the story we tell that we will continue to amplify through these shareholder meetings. So with that, it has been an incredible opportunity to be together, to learn together, to be in community. I wanted to give you a heads up about what to expect next in the All Our Might campaign. Next week and the week after, we are keeping the pressure on Chase and BlackRock. And we also know that this is a long-term effort, and the All Our Might campaign is a longer-term campaign. As I shared at the beginning of the call, our campaign has 3 strategies. The first is stopping the money pipeline to fossil fuel companies by moving our dough and encouraging moving our dough, and in the case of these Shmutzi Sheva, so pressuring those who are financing fossil fuels, and our Passover actions were a real important first step in that work. But we do have 2 other prongs: working in partnership with Jewish communal institutions to move their own investments. That is leverage. Someone asked a question about leverage. That is a great example of leverage. We are part of a broader community, and that community banks and invests. So we will work with our Jewish communal institutions to move their investments from polluting fossil fuels to clean energy. And similar to RAND, we are committed to standing with communities on the front lines, facing down fossil fuel projects in their neighborhood and on their traditional land. So Passover actions and tonight's teach-in were focused on that first strategy, but we will be hosting teach-ins later this summer to better understand and prepare ourselves to engage in those second and third strategies. So stay tuned for more information. If you liked this, there's more where this came from. So I want to thank everyone for joining tonight. In just a second, we're going to head to the music. So don't sign off just yet, because as you saw, Eitan will really help you end your night on a really sweet note. But I want to ask you to share a goodbye or greeting, or maybe share that one thing that you learned that you plan on sharing with others in the chat, as a way to see each other and be seen. I know with the webinar, you have to use your imagination, but it is great to be here in the chat with you. So feel free to share a good night or goodbye greeting in the chat, and or share something that you learned, that tidbit that you plan to pass on, and invite someone to join us in that work. Maybe it's what you're going to share with the video when you post it on social media next week. So I am going to turn it over to Eitan, who has one more song to play. But Eitan, it would be great if you could start that song off with just a few words of grounding and explanation, because we know that you are a skilled composer and intentional in everything that you do, and we'd love to hear more from you. So Eitan, please take it away. And to everyone, good night. It's been a privilege to be together.
Thank you, Dahlia. And wow, I'm just feeling so inspired by everybody that's on this Zoom right now. And I can't wait to share the video on my social media. In a moment, we're going to play a recording of another song, which hopefully will get everybody kind of up and dancing. But before that, I wanted to say a few words about the song that I sang earlier, Ana Elna, and then a few words about the song that we're about to hear. Ana Elna, I wrote as part of a practice devised by Rabbi Micah Shapiro, in which everybody is given a text, and we have just 1 hour to come up with a melody and perform it. It doesn't have to be a good melody. In fact, it can be a C+ or a B- melody, but we have to make something in the time we're given. And I feel like that's a great model for climate action, because we don't need to pick the absolute most efficient, most elegant, perfect way to participate in climate action. We just need to do something good, anything good, in the time we're given. The song that we're about to hear is called Merciful One, and it features vocals by me and Ayo Awushika and production by B. Port. And the lyrics mean, the Merciful One, she will grant us an honorable living, and justice will flow down like water. These lyrics come from Grace After Meals and from the prophet Amos. And I hope that the song brings into our mind a vision of a future in which the way our society sustains itself economically promotes justice and equity and reduces suffering. A future in which our activities are generative and not extractive. And hopefully a future which is filled with joy and dancing.